Honorable Roger Alexander, the Minister of Tertiary Education and Skills Training, Honorable Prakash Prasad, the Minister of Planning, Economic Development, Honorable Kenny Swarat Singh, and we are also joined by the Minister of Legal Affairs, Honorable Saddam Hussein. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Cabinet would have agreed to a number of policies and discussions earlier to benefit the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and that is why I'd like to invite to the microphone or to the podium this evening the Honorable Minister of Tertiary Education and Skills Training, Honorable Prakash Prasad, to begin this evening's media briefing.
Thank you and good evening. It's good news for Trinidad and Tobago, and particularly for people in South Trinidad. After a long hiatus, the UE Day Bay campus work is going to start from tomorrow, I believe, on the rehabilitation of this campus. Firstly, scope of works will be done to identify exactly what needs to be done, and then that will be followed by the construction work itself. This has been done under the inspired leadership of the Prime Minister, and also in collaboration with the UWI. So I think this is really good news for us after a long while.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. As we continue to discuss some of the policies agreed today, we'd like to invite the Minister of Planning and Economic Development as we remind the population our standard of living and our economy is a very... and now I'd like to invite to the podium the Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Kennedy Swarat Singh.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Today, the Government of Trinidad and Tobago, under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, continue to demonstrate our commitment to the environment with the Cabinet by agreeing to a number of important milestones. First of all, the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, together with the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, have been authorized by the Cabinet to sign an MOU in support of our ocean governance in the Caribbean and North Brazil shelf large marine ecosystem. And this MOU will facilitate pragmatic coordination of ocean governance and support, among other things, the national monitoring of progress with ocean sustainability. Cabinet has also agreed to become a member, for the Government of Trinidad and Tobago to become a member of the International Coral Reef Initiative. In this initiative, the Institute of Marine Affairs, together with the Tobago House of Assembly, will form a national joint focal point for ICRI. In support of this initiative, in the International Coral Reef Initiative, Cabinet will allow these agencies to now support the ICRI continuous call to action, which speaks to the application and review of integrated management of coral reefs and building capacity to do so, supported by scientific research. Additionally, Cabinet has approved the 2030 Trinidad and Tobago National Biodiversity Targets, and Cabinet noted that these targets, these national biodiversity targets, will assist Trinidad and Tobago to evaluate whether national conservation actions have been effective, whilst also monitoring and motivating organizations to work towards these agreed targets. Fourthly, Cabinet has also approved the National Climate Change Policy of Trinidad and Tobago. And the National Climate Change Policy of Trinidad and Tobago will allow the Minister of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development to refer and lay this policy in Parliament and refer this policy for the consideration of the national community in terms of our policy implementation and integration framework, greenhouse gas mitigation, adaptation and climate resilience building, education and training, and transparency, among other things. Also, Cabinet has agreed to the reconstitution of the Economic Development Board and the Council for Competitiveness and Innovation. This council will report directly to the Minister of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, and the matters therein will be for the consideration of the ministry in transmitting to Cabinet and its recommendation in terms of how it impact on our national economic strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister of Planning and Economic Development. Again, reiterating this government's commitment to our economy as well as our climate. Ladies and gentlemen, our Prime Minister and our government are very focused and dedicated on our national security, on solving our national security issues. And today, our Cabinet approved a major policy to ensure citizens' safety. I'd like to welcome the Minister of Homeland Security, Honorable Roger Alexander, to speak to you on that.
Good afternoon, members of the media, and to the viewing and listening public. This government of Trinidad and Tobago, led by the Honorable Prime Minister, Ms. Kamala Bissessa SC, has made it and approved today the absorption of over 800 police officers into the regular Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This waiver of mandatory academic and required entry into the TTPS is to facilitate over the shortfall of over 1,154 vacancies that presently exist. At this time, the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is looking at all options available to it for the protection of our citizens. At this time, as we speak, a number of persons, again, have been interviewed with respect to schools and the protection of our children. I will speak further on it when questions are asked. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Minister of Homeland Security. Again, this government remains very focused on our national security, and I'd like to welcome to the podium the Minister of Legal Affairs, Honorable Saddam Hussein, to again divulge more of what we discussed earlier at Cabinet relating to citizens' security.
Thank you very much, Minister Morris. Members of the media, those who are viewing us live, the announcement by the Minister of Homeland Security is really a landmark decision, an announcement by this Kamala Bissessa-led administration. You would have remembered several years ago, while in opposition, the United National Congress would have raised this issue with respect to the absorption of Special Reserve officers within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Force as regular officers. The reason why this has been a burning issue to us is simply because these officers, the SRP structure, these officers are treated much differently from those who are regular officers in terms of their terms and conditions, in particular their remuneration packages. This government has committed, we made that promise, that we will absorb the SRP officers into regular officers, and we have kept that promise. Today, the Cabinet has made that particular decision. So there will be 800 Special Reserve Police officers to be absorbed within the regular police officers. This will in particular address the manpower shortage we have in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service also. And I say that because that is evident, especially from the overtime bill that the TTPS has to incur on a fiscal and yearly basis. Further to that, this is not a new project. the absorption of SRPs was done in previous years. In 2008 in particular, there was the absorption of 1,000 SRP officers within the regular police service. And this also will give an indication that we are about to treat people fairly in terms of the jobs they perform. That these officers perform almost the same or identical job as the regular officers, but they are paid differently. And that is something that we want to correct as an administration. It will also increase the motivation of these officers, because this is something that they have called for many years. So we are happy to bring such good news to the men and women in uniform of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, that for the last 10 years, that they are now going to be treated in a fair and equitable manner under this Kamala Prasad-Bissessar-led administration. So I thank you all very much, and I think Mr. Morris will now open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much, Minister Hussain. So again, as we continue today's cabinet media briefing, we remind you that the cabinet would have agreed to issues pertaining to the economy, the climate, our education sector, and national security. So now we invite members of the media to ask questions. Just identify yourself and your media house. So we invite questions. I'll take, well, Sean.
Minister Alexander, did you mention something about a lowering of academic requirements? Sorry, did Minister Alexander mention something about a lowering of academic requirements to become a police officer? Because I think at the moment, if you could guide me, it's probably like 5 passes, including the maths and the English. But whether you're doing trigonometry on the job or calculus, I'm not sure if that's required. But yeah.
Sure. The regulation will come sometime after. Yeah, the regulation with respect to the absorption will come sometime after, which you'll be able to see and view. All right?
But in principle, I mean, the theory is a theory that really an officer on the beat does not need to know trigonometry and to do a quadratic equation and to do all of this, which is a 50% failure rate in the Caribbean. I mean, what's the philosophy that the cabinet is moving with? Please.
Again, the regulation will come. Remember, these officers are already on the job. It's not to say like we recruited persons from the street. They have been performing duties all over Trinidad and Tobago, protecting your life, protecting my life, protecting the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So what we are saying now is that the regulation with respect to the absorption will come thereafter.
But at the moment, SRPs, the SRPs need to have the maths and English and the 5 O levels, or is it a higher standard to get into the regular police service? Is it an easier standard to be an SRP?
When persons are selected to be Special Reserve Police, it is a choice they make. So they can come with degrees, they can come with masters, they can come with subjects. It doesn't change.
Minimum
Yeah,
requirement.
right.
In the minimum, if I don't have my maths, but I want to be an SRP, can I become an SRP without the maths? Okay, but could I become a regular, at the moment, as things now stand, can I become a regular officer without the maths?
Well, as I said before, we want to treat with the regulations thereafter. So you asking me that, I will say again, we will treat with the regulations thereafter.
Well,
And in 2008, it was done. Yeah?
Right.
And a short time ago, before that, there are a number of places, I think the 1 or 2 fire service and other places, they would have waived certain agreements. So what I'm saying to you is this: we will present to you the regulation sometime after.
Afternoon, Private Harry, ECP News. Minister, but you have people as SRP, as a police officer, who would have to take a report and go to court. Do you think that they'll be properly qualified, to do those things?
Let me answer this. They are taking reports and going to court now.
But there is a belief that the police service, is inefficient, and in terms of the quality and qualification of police officers right now.
I cannot agree with that, because if that was the case, the police service would not be able to perform the way it is performing now, and it is already overburdened by the lack of resources especially manpower. I just told you there are 1,152 police officers. They are lacking in that respect. All right? We are short by, the police service is short by 1,152 police officers.
So the academy would continue to recruit officers into the main.
As it is doing now.
See that person on your radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Cameron Fletcher, Guardian Media. While having more officers is all well and good, I want to go straight to something that's wrong in the country today. I want to mention the name Candice Connery. I'm not pronouncing her name properly. The young lady that was missing for a while, and now her body was found, right? Not to be graphic, we know in which it was found. I want you as Homeland Security Minister to address that for us. And I know at the last post-cabinet meeting, you'd have mentioned that coming out of the CARICOM meetings, there were plans and policies. I don't want to reveal it as yet, but I want you to address that today and the investigation. And under your watch as Minister, we've had 8 leaders already, 26 being female. So I want you to address that, and coming out of that particular crime situation right now, what are the plans and policies, specific things that you want to address?
Well, I will tell you this. All murders is of concern to the government, to the people, and to our family. And I don't want to divulge too much into this, but the police is presently looking at a particular type of investigation where this is concerned. Yeah? And I wouldn't want to say much about it.
I mean, I'm just imagining that, you know, were you not in that seat that you were sitting, everyone would have had their televisions on at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whatever time your program would have been on, and you'd have had a lot to say about this particular topic. And, you know, a large population, you have had a huge viewership, would have been looking to you for answers for things. So now holding this position, this responsibility, we want to hear from you. How did that make you feel? What directives are you going to take to these new officers?
Well, let me tell you this. Let me say this to you. Back then, I would have made a statement as a police officer. Now, as a line minister, I must be careful in my approach to, in some way, interfere with the investigation. I want the police to do their job. My responsibility is to give the police the tools to do their job. Yeah? And that is my intention. So asking me that at this stage, I wouldn't want to divulge too much. And persons continue to ask about crime plan. It's not a crime plan, it's an anti-crime plan. And as time goes by, you all will be able to get the information. All right? It involves the changing of a lot of things. All right? So just allow things to happen. I mean, you're going to tell me, yes, persons are dying and all of these things. But we too, as citizens, have a responsibility. You notice, and I want to bring up this very openly, I want persons, especially females, to be careful with this social media network in terms of their dating behaviors.
Does that have to do something with this particular situation?
As a lady, as a female, I tell you also to be careful. We are making a certain observations.
Coming out of the National Security Council, I mean, any other things that you can reveal to the population?
Now, the National Security Council, yeah, we will treat to that, you know?
One of the major issues impacting the police service as well as national security as a whole is the very low detection rate, under 10% perhaps, the even lower gathering of prosecutable evidence, and even lower actual prosecution of matters and so on. What is the government doing to assist the police and law enforcement as a whole to up the ante where that is concerned?
It's about bringing bills before the parliament. It's about bringing technology to law enforcement. It's about bringing legislation such as the DNA legislation more effective and more impactful than what we are hearing from the colleagues that you seem to speak to often.
But these are things that we have been hearing year on year over previous administration. Do you have a time frame? Can you give something more definitive as to the DNA when we at least have some actual improvement in that with the ballistic setup? So what you're saying, the forensic setup, but using the further technologies that you spoke about last.
So what you're saying to me, you heard that over the 10-year period that the other government was here?
We have been hearing a lot of this thing, but there's nothing specific, nothing concrete. You're just hearing it, but nothing has been DNA data bank.
But I sure you would have heard within the last 10 years. persons wanting to absorb the Special Reserve Police. And what you saw today.
No, well, that's one aspect.
That is the impact of this government on the population.
So again, and that is good, and congratulations on that. But in terms of even training those people, and in terms of using the technology, keep in mind that some of these guys, their foundation education might be a little lower than the average police and so on, to help them to get up to date on the technology that you all have. But again,
I don't understand why you continue to go down that particular road. Because the police service has a very high rate of success in terms of persons treating with crime. Now, I know sometimes you look at the incident rate and say, it's at 10 murders and 4. Right, detection rate. But nobody measures the prevention that was done by police officers in the execution of their duties. So police officers preventing crime, it cannot be measured. You cannot measure it. You wouldn't come here and speak about that because you don't know. But you will see if someone is murdered or someone is robbed and you put a percentage to it. But you don't ever put a percentage to the preventative measures used by law enforcement in the protection of our citizens.
And would they continue to have SRP officers?
Of course. Can you tell us how many SRP officers exist at present?
I would be able to give you that, not right away.
There was an SRP officer, retired officer, I believe he won a lawsuit because he was demoted from SRP for another position. Would other SRP officers in this absorption, their title change there?
The title change?
Well, he won the lawsuit because at the time he was demoted from one to the next. So now that these officers are going to be absorbed, would that include?
So, you see, there will be issues involving you get a better benefit to you being a regular police officer, and all of these things. So persons need to check themselves and how you look at it.
Good afternoon, ministers. From TV6. Now, it's directed to you, Minister Alexander, but of course the United National Congress campaigned heavily on crime. You were perceived as somewhat of a superhero when you came on that campaign, when you appeared on the platform and so on. Now the UMC is being heavily criticized for not being, quote-unquote, ready for the job. You, of course, in an interview on TV6, you would have asked the population to hold straight. So my question to you is, how soon can people start seeing those results, the FULs, the police presence? How soon?
You see, and this is what, because the police don't come out and say, listen, they have since been giving persons FUL, and the numbering, you tell yourself it's not happening. All right? What we are looking at is that when we came into office, there were a number of situations that existed, and somewhat still. Now, I want you to understand this. Whenever an institution, take for instance, we procure vehicles, it don't take 2 days, it don't take 3. It is not a weekly process, it's not a monthly process. Sometimes I am seeing things waiting as long as a year. My fire service team is waiting for equipment now for a year. March the 13th or somewhere around there was a year since they were waiting for these things. So it's not like I could just walk into a store unless it's by Toys R Us and just purchase these things and walk out. I want to get what is good and what is world standards for my officers in order to fight crime effectively.
I just want to
How many?
add to what you're saying, right? We have been the government for just about 2 months and 2 weeks. And within that very short period, we have appointed a permanent commissioner of police in the parliament. We have now introduced, the law has in fact been drafted for home invasion laws, for stand your ground laws, which will be going out for public consultation from this coming week. You also have the absorption of these 800 SRP officers, 2 months, 2 weeks. And we also had the absorption of the auxiliary fire officers within the permanent structure of the fire service also. So those are some of the achievements we have been able to make over these very few weeks, and we have more to come. We have competent ministers, we have a competent leader, we are now faced with 10 years of neglect from the last administration, which we are trying to correct first, but also roll out some of our plans. And these are plans that you can also find within our manifesto that we had during the campaign, and that manifesto was in fact adopted by the cabinet as government policy.
Everywhere else, you said that because it hasn't been announced, we don't know. Can you say how many?
I will give the Commissioner of Police an opportunity to answer the question because he's signing off on them. We are also in the process. Yes, we are in the process also to digitize the firearm section of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So you're not seeing things happening because you're looking at crime alone, all right? But in order for us to get that grip on crime, I must first resource the institutions because only I would know what I meant when I came. I hear you speaking to other persons and they have a lot to say which they didn't say anything because all you have to do sometimes, reporters, is to ask persons within the organization, within these institutions, ask them what is happening, and they will tell you. So sometimes you don't have to ask me. Go and ask any police officer. Say, listen, do you have bulletproof vests? When last have you had a new bulletproof vest updated and all these things? And they will answer you. So sometimes you don't have to wait on me. Ask those persons secretly. You know you always have a source. Secretly, ask one of your sources. All you have bulletproof vests? How long will you have it? And they will answer you. So you don't need to come to me all the time. You see, because the ministers of the past, they just couldn't tell the truth. He just wouldn't tell the truth up to today. So having said that, we wait.
Minister Hussein, you spoke about the absorption of the SRPs into the police service. You spoke about overtime. Can you give us ideas as to how much overtime was spent in the police service? I'm not sure if Mr. Alexander can answer as well.
If you remember, the last figure we may have had was from the last fiscal. That was a big story, I believe, from several news stations. I think it rolled into some tens of millions of dollars, if I'm not mistaken. But it's quite a large overtime bill. Minister Alexander could probably provide that information to you with the exact figures that the police service is currently facing.
Minister Alexander, can you confirm what you like for us whether or not a cabinet minister has been paid on the investigation?
I don't know where that seemed to be a CPEP contract from the past that is a ghost. Because we don't know where you're speaking about. Nobody seems to know exactly where this came from. However, sometimes it's just mischief in the making.
In terms of the schools, you know how many schools police officers were going to open and how many officers would be in those schools and what is the process in terms of those officers?
That will be determined by the Commissioner of Police, together with the request or the requirement by any school to have that type of environment available to them. Yeah, they will fall into the groove they're in now, where if they would have run afoul of the law, they will be treated with almost immediately. So the probationary period will be determined by their behaviors. And that's being honest.
This 800, is it a one-off or going forward, the academic qualifications will be waived?
Good question. Let me say this, right? Every year, we look at basic recruitment of 2,500 officers. But when we look at what is happening in terms of the police service, persons are either resigning or retiring, 200 per year. So the police service always seems to be at a disadvantage. So what we are trying to do is to bridge that gap between what is happening in terms of persons leaving and persons coming in, to provide presence and visibility on the nation streets. The commissioner spoke to me earlier today, and he's looking at a slow but positive impact by removing persons from the office and putting police officers where they're supposed to be back onto the nation streets. And I applaud him for that.
Sure. Will be on the ground, they will be out and about patrolling, or?
Well, as I said before, That is the responsibility of the police commissioner the commissioner of police.
Cameras, the use of cameras.
As if Sean then came here, he'll come up, please.
Sean, put it up here.
What it was, yeah, just the school. Can we ask? Is this what was known as school safety officers? They used to go. Was it school security officers? There was a program running a while where all these secondary schools had somebody allocated. So is it a continuation of what was known as a school safety officers program, or is it a new program? And is it being run by the Ministry of Education or Ministry of National Security?
It's a collaboration. It's a collaboration between both the Ministry of National Security, or the Homeland Minister, and the Education Minister. But let me just say this: at the end of the day, we will provide a name that could cause a positive impact for both society, the children, and the principals of the school and law enforcement.
Is there currently, if you go to any school now, is there currently school safety officers involved, or is this going to be like a continuation of, is there currently a program, because I know there was a few years ago, but I don't know if it was scrapped, or is this a new initiative happening?
It's a new initiative because we are looking to get a real impact. I don't know if you saw any real impact coming from the last couple of initiatives, but we are looking to get a positive or real impact from our establishment of this particular unit when it comes out.
Right. You had said, can I just say one last teeny thing? I think you had said that you were talking to people or interviewing people, but has that been like announced? Like if I want to go and become a school safety officer, you know, have I been announced that it's out there?
What we are going to do, what the angle we are looking at, this government is looking at, is to have law enforcement officers who would be precepted. So in case something happens, they will be able to treat with it in the best way. So you might think you might want to be a safety officer. That might be good. But if we have somebody on the ground there, because we've seen parents coming in and acting strange and all these things, if persons violate the law, they would be dealt with there and then. Yeah?
It's a very different, I mean, precepted, that's a very strong word. I know it's part of the UNC's.
That's how we feel about the safety and security of our citizens and our nation's schools.
Opening new kinds of work. You see in America where schools now become the target because there's such a mass proliferation of guns.
Right.
I mean, it's endless.
Are we to wait?
Sorry?
Are we to wait until something like that happens to take this type of measure? Reporter, I know sometimes we can't please everybody, you know. Let me tell you why I tell you that. You know, so when we don't do it, you all come with questions. When we do it, you all come with questions. But we have to do it for the benefit of our citizens.
So what are the officers thinking about this? I'm just imagining officers who are accustomed being inside, and now they have to go outside. What is the response they're getting? Like, are they all here in the public right now? Well, I want to know what's the response from these officers. That they have to...
The officers are adaptable. One minute they're driving, one minute they're walking, one minute they're running down, one minute they're going through the bush. So, and that's how it is. You look for that kind of officer who will be able to treat with any situation that confronts him, and that's why the commissioner will benefit from all of this.
Do you think, in your opinion, that there's been a spike in kidnappings?
A spike?
Yeah.
Well, let me answer this. There might be a spike in kidnapping or reports of kidnapping if you look at it. I don't know if we would call it a spike. However, as I said before, some of these things are investigated and a certain pattern is observed. All right? I wouldn't want to say much more about that.
One of the challenges in the implementation of the precepted school policing, so to speak, will be in many schools have female students in terms of the recruitment or female officers to treat with female students. They cannot really have male officers, you know, trying to restrain female, and that those things can lead to different challenges and so on. Do you think that there will be sufficient female officers?
Yeah, you see, and I want to tell you this. Yeah, the operation of this particular thing would be done by the Commissioner of Police, as he sees fit, according to what type of school it is, because they are both male and female schools. That's all. So they will treat with that.
terms of, there still seems to be a major resistance. While I know it's not your remit per se, but at any rate, the police commissioner will report you as the line minister in terms of the persons willingly wearing the body cam or resistance to wearing the body cam, police officers are. What reports are you getting?
None at all in terms of resistance to wear the body cam. None at all. You see officers wearing the body cam all the time. Now, the problem remains is that if the body cam is suited for the present situation, and that's what I'm saying to you, a police officer has an old vest on, very old bulletproof vest. You know the only thing you see is the body cam, right?
So we have Prior and Arvashi. One more after Arvashi because cabinet is still going on and these ministers are part of it.
Yeah.
Kimmery will allow you, so we'll go Prior, Arvashi, sooner than Kimmery to wrap it up. So,
Minister Prasad, can you explain the David campus? Is it under the purview of the government? Is the physical structure, right? So the government fixes up the campus. In terms of the academics, is UB going to send students there, and is it going to be a law faculty or is it going to be medical faculty? What is the issue with that now?
It's still the UV Pinal Debe campus. We did speak to the Vice Chancellor of UV and the principal also. So it's been done in collaboration with the government. The government is actually funding the construction of the campus. So it still belongs to UV, but remember the major funder of UV is the government. So we have this partnership with UV, which continues.
And will it be a law campus?
Well, there are discussions for a variety of things. We have to look at the needs. The cabinet will look at the needs of the country, what is required, including law, because initially it meant to be that, but the needs change over time, and that is going to happen.
So it will be law among other things, among other topics.
Presume so.
So I do have two questions, please. One would be for you. Previously, well, looking at the diplomatic center, previously it was declared sort of unfit for use. Could you tell us what updates have been done and the current status?
Arvashi, as you can see, we are in some very lovely surroundings because this government, as it has been doing in the entire country, has engaged in a national campaign to fix our national institutions, to fix our laws, and to really fix our society. And I think this is a demonstration of this government's commitment to clean up what we've met. We commend UDCOT and Minister John and that new team at UDCOT for the premises here today. We reiterate what we would have seen here at the start of our term was very, very deplorable. But again, in keeping with this government's mandate to ensure that our national institutions, our public spaces are in the best shape for our population, because this belongs to the people, and here we are doing the people's business. The cabinet is still meeting today. The ministers are accounting to you, and today what you are seeing is an environment that has been well cleaned up, well put in place, so we can do the people's business. And you've heard today the wide range of issues we've addressed. So that is our modus operandi as a government. And today you are seeing government in action, governance in action.
The facility, is it fully functional?
Again, it is getting there, but again, that is a question best served to the UDCOT team and the relevant line minister. So I'd like to keep on the issues we had for prior. So I'd go back to Arvashi for her questioning. So. The Prime Minister, those questions will be addressed in due time by the Prime Minister, and I think what we'll keep to the issues here today. And so we just go back to Arvashi.
Thank you. The two are not mutually exclusive. At the end of the day, we do have some obligations in terms of how we can green our country, while at the same time we have to pursue our national economic objectives. Trinidad and Tobago has been an oil and gas economy for over 100 years. That will not change. But that does not mitigate the fact that we need to find additional improvements, or find ways to improve, rather, the national green initiatives that we will undertake, because at the end of the day, we live in a global community, and we do have to think in terms of not only what is viable now, but also where we go in the future. So, for example, many of the energy companies pursue alternative energy projects, and BP, Shell, all of them, and so both are not mutually exclusive.
And of course, your Minister in the Ministry of Finance, as you are approaching appetite from members in finance sector about government's intention or government is thinking about floating, devaluing our dollar or adjusting the currency in some way. Can you give us any insight into that?
We can't talk about policy here that haven't been approved or even considered by cabinet, and so that is not part of our discussion at this time. But we are in the process of looking for budget consultation, but nowhere in our consultations are there talks of devaluation.
Professor Prasad, in terms of the rehabilitation of the UWI South campus, can you say what is exactly the scope of works and the cost to this and the time completion?
But the scope of works has been done, and like I said, should start tomorrow, I believe. Take a few weeks or less to find out exactly what needs to be done, so the construction can proceed smoothly. The Prime Minister is very keen on having this campus open for the benefit of students in South Trinidad and for the economy in South also. So that's how it goes. I mean, there's not much we can say. Until they determine the scope of works, we can't say what it is. That's the purpose of determining the scope of works.
And just the Minister's for yesterday, you made mention of staff shortages at BNR, customs, other critical departments that are operating probably understaffed.
Yes. All. Maybe I can tell you which ones are not, because they all, I mean, the DPA, CPO, I mean, all the agencies, there has been a significant lack of resourcing, both in terms of human resource and other resources. But that is something that I think that you guys who have been here for the last however years are better able to discuss than I, because as I said, this is what we have found as we came into government. And I remember when I was Minister of Public Administration years ago, the public service was a very robust place. But over the last 10 years or so, I'm not quite sure what took place. I can only tell you what we would have found, what we found, and the impact that it has had on the ability for agencies to do their work.
What are some of the immediate measures going to be taken place to remedy the situation?
Minister Alexander would have indicated, and Minister Hussein would have indicated at least two measures. Fire, we already brought in the special fire office, special reserve fire officers. We're doing the same thing with the SRPs. We have already begun to recruit for BIR. We met with customs, and we're beginning to address the custom shortages. Some of the issues that you would recognize, and the reason why the absorption of persons in fire and police are so critical, is that they're already trained. They're already on the job. So it's an easy assimilation, notwithstanding the various issues that you would have raised. When you bring in people, for example, in customs and other places, there's a level of training. So even when you recruit persons, you still have, in BIR, you have 6 months of training for you can be a tax officer or tax auditor. Customs is the same thing. What you would have also found is that there's been a level of attrition. When we stagger our recruitment processes and we bring in large batches of persons at any one point in time, the reciprocal effect of that is that all those persons leave at the same time. So, for example, one of the areas in customs that we would have had to look at is that you have a lot of younger persons performing jobs that are better suited for more experienced officers. So those are things that we have to address. So it's not just simply the recruitment, it's the recruitment, the training, the resourcing. There are a number of compounded issues that these things have led to in many organizations. And so when you talk about the effective policing or the effective implementation of some of the policies and so on, there's a cumulative sort of negative impact that all of these things have had. So to go back to one of the things that Minister Hussein would have talked about, and I think is even to also to what Minister Alexander spoke of, even though we have only been here probably 2.5 months, the police commissioner have been here even less time. So, you know, we have to recognize the fact that in some areas there are no easy fixes, and it requires collective effort from all of us. But one of the things that I can assure you is that under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, she's pushing all of us. You know, I mean, many of us work 7 days a week. She's pushing us to try to see how we can address these issues one by one, but make sure and address it in such a way where we take many of our institutions. And I think one of the things that I must emphasize, and I'm very, very proud of my colleagues, is that the kind of leadership and the engagement we are bringing to many of these organizations, they have not had it from persons in the past. So the Controller of Customs, the Commissioner of Police, the Chief Fire Officer, the Commissioner of Inland Revenue, they're all getting a sense that not only one minister, but several ministers are engaging with them, trying to solve these problems. And the Minister of Finance has been working round the clock to make sure that we have the resources we need to address some of those issues.
I'd just like to say that, you know, it's quite disappointing when we come to ask a question and people want to hear, and the answers we're getting is let the Prime Minister answer that or someone else answer that. Or the Prime Minister via another postcard was not present. So I'm just saying, you know, we come to ask the questions to the government, and we're hoping that even if the Prime Minister is not present, a minister could ask. And if a minister can't ask, then kindly relay the information that to the Prime Minister that the people would like to see or hear the post-cabinet meetings. Right? We may have to change the time of the cabinet meeting. But my question is.
The Prime Minister is not absent from the postcard for any reason, because she's in the cabinet right now. This cabinet and this government does not have T20 cabinet meetings. We have very long meetings to run the country. There are a number of issues we met after 10 years, and it requires a lot of attention. And when the cabinet meets on cabinet days, they go for a number of hours. And so we apologize if she's not here, but she's in the cabinet right now doing the nation's business. She has her ministers here. She has her ministers here to answer. And the Prime Minister is always available. She speaks to you on the Monday night. She speaks to the ministers, and she speaks to everybody via whenever they're contacted. So again, the post-cabinet meeting, the ministers are here, and the Prime Minister is in cabinet as we speak. And it's after 6, matter of fact, but she's still in cabinet with her government.
Can I ask one question? Because, you know, you all seem to be asking questions every time you see you all. When last you had a press conference with any government of the past, and we were able to present things to you that you could actually see? I hold.
So to ask my question, I know the Minister was asking there quickly, what was the question that wasn't answered? We were asking about the diplomatic center, and about to ask about if she moved into the White House, so that was not answered. But to ask my questions, I'm hoping that we can answer. Just to shift topics quickly right now, everyone is talking about state board appointments right now. The opposition has made some bold accusations about ethnic imbalance in the state board and the persons that are being appointed, right? I want to ask the question, and I want someone to answer whether or not you can confirm or deny if the wives of 2 ministers, Minister Munilal and Minister Clyde Elder, have been appointed to the board for the Southwest Regional Health Authority. Answer that question, and also to add into that question, what is the criteria for persons to be appointed to these boards?
With respect to the various board appointments, Cabinet meet. Notes are presented through the Ministry of Finance. The Cabinet considers those appointments. The appointments are then subsequently considered by the Cabinet. Then those appointments are confirmed by way of the Ministry of Finance or the President or whoever is the appointing body, be the Minister also. When certain boards are appointed by law, for example, the RHAs prescribe exactly the qualifications of certain persons to serve on those boards. There are certain boards where you don't have a statutory restriction in terms of the qualification of a person. Through this particular administration, we have been appointing state boards almost on a weekly basis when Cabinet meets. And when we do that, there are particular due diligence exercises that take place before the names are even presented to the cabinet. And even while the names are presented to the cabinet, members of the cabinet will also express views on certain appointments and so on. At present, the cabinet has in fact considered certain board appointments. However, those considerations are considered to be secret until the announcements are formally made. With respect to what you are asking, those were deliberations in terms of the names of those boards and so on, were matters considered by the cabinet. You will have to wait subsequently until the appointments are formally made before we can confirm all of the appointments. So just bear some patience. There is a process, and we would not want to prejudice any of that at this point in time.
So why is it 2 ministers considered? And I'm asking this because the government said that, the PNM hires their family and their friends. Even when they became the government, you're saying that a lot of these persons are appointed in, let's say, WASA, let's say other companies, are the friends and family of PNM ministers. So now I'm asking if the wives of government ministers were considered have been appointed.
The allegations we made from the last administration were multi-million-dollar contracts being awarded to spouses and so on, or companies that those spouses may be affiliated to. In this circumstance, we are telling you names may have come to the cabinet. Those names are considered. You just have to wait until those appointments are made. We were very clear. Whatever we said in the campaign, even while we were in opposition, we were very clear with respect to holding that government account with respect to the expenditure of state funds. So that is two separate issues that you're speaking of, respectfully, with respect to the comment that you're trying to make.
How do you feel about the opposition playing the race card, or do you think the opposition played the race card with the remarks that Marvin Gonzalez made?
Opposition, stop the race talk. We are about governing. This United National Congress government is about governing for all of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
So we'll just take 2 more questions because the members have to go to cabinet. So we go to Ovashi and then see that you'll end off. And so.
Well, better yet, the government, because all governments in the region contribute to the CWI, which appears not to be serving regional interests. I'd like to know if this matter has come up at all, and if the Prime Minister's government intends to add its voice to this debacle. We know that Guyana President Irfan Ali, he did speak to it. Do we have a position? Are we going to continue funding the CWI?
That question, I think we were all hurt by that performance. The Prime Minister and most of this cabinet are very big cricket fans, and that the Minister of Sport will focus on that and deal with that as it comes up. But as we are right now, the country's safety, our economic stability, and a number of issues are priority right now. We share the love for West Indies cricket, but that will be discussed when it comes up later on. Right now, we have a country, we have national security and the economy to run. So we send our best wishes to the West Indies Cricket Board, but this government will remain focused on the business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So, see that?
Can Dr. Smart Singh, as a minister in the Ministry of Finance and also the Minister of Planning and Economic Development, can you state what has become of the Coleman Commission of Inquiry report on CRECO, which this administration has pledged to lay in Parliament as one of its early priority? And also, second part, on the campaign trail, UNC had committed to handing back CL Financial to the rightful shareholders. Now, will the government be having a transaction board for Angostura CRECO Home Construction Limited, while it works on taking the company out of liquidation and entering into a shareholders agreement, which is more sustainable than liquidation, which under the previous UNC administration, that's the road they have taken the shareholders agreement.
Thank you for that question, sweetheart, but we haven't been able to we haven't had a comprehensive conversation yet to be able to develop a strategy to deal with all the issues related to CLICO. But as soon as we've had that conversation and we have had cabinet approval in terms of our direction, then we're able to discuss it in a more holistic way. Some of those conversations will require the liquidator and the Ministry of Finance together with the Attorney General to have a more, so we have started, but we haven't had a conclusive arrangement that we can bring to the public's attention.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, we thank you very much for joining our cabinet media briefing. Safe travels, and the government will continue to do its work to protect our country, develop our economy, and serve our citizens. So thank you for joining us again.